I'm on the line right now with Calvin Tankman. No other way to put it. You're a breakout star after your recent appearance for Game Changer Wrestling. How you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. You're breaking out on a national level, but you're not new to wrestling. You've been wrestling for about 4 years, a little more, mostly working for uh, the Indiana area promotions and IWA, Mid South. But really, you got a lot of attention after GCW ran their Indianapolis event a couple weeks ago. So, can you just talk about how you hooked up with them and what you think of the response you got after the event?
This response has definitely been overwhelming. It's something that I didn't necessarily expect, but definitely a moment that I'll definitely keep tight for as long as I have my career. But really, as long as I'm alive, I'll always remember that. But GCW is one of those things where it's definitely a promotion you want to be at if you're an independent wrestler in today's society, or in today's climate. So you can watch video of NGI last year, and I was cleaning up glass in between rounds. So really just busting my butt to do whatever I could to get an opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, you can go back and watch the whole match, but I mean, you're giftable, so that's like the seal of approval these days. So
Definitely.
you definitely have that. Your last match, if I have it correct, was March 15th for Bizarro Lucha.
Yes. Yeah.
So how are the layoffs affecting you in that aspect? Because the indies got hit hard, especially, and GCW didn't run for a while. A lot of places were sidelined. So how did that affect you as an athlete?
It went from a different city every night during the weekend to absolutely nothing, and it's been a blessing and a curse. It's been a blessing because I can really start to break down film and pay attention to uh, just the greats and study how to be better. But then at the same time, you're not getting that same in-ring work that you would. So it's a battle to try and make sure that when you do come back and you do get those opportunities, that you're not rusty. You were talking about GCW, and that was one of the things I was worried about. Was I hadn't done any of this stuff in 2 months, 3 months at that time. So it was kind of a little bit of almost first match jitters all over again. It's definitely a struggle, but or it's definitely not easy. But there's definitely steps you can do to at least keep yourself from completely not getting any work at all.
I mean, it's got to be somewhat reassuring that a company like that's taking all the right precautions too, coming back. Like, even you saw with that show, and then the Fourth of July one, they're sanitizing the ring, making sure everybody's taken care of. So, you're not coming back into a bad situation.
The first thing that happened is I got a thermometer stuck to my forehead so they could figure out to make sure nobody had fevers and everything. So it's definitely in a world of uncertainty that it at least is reassuring that we're going to get back to wrestling, but at least at a different way, and we're being more cautious about how we're going to do that. So
you won the scramble match on that event, and your next event with them is July 26th. It's GCW Homecoming, and you're facing Chris Dickinson, who is not only an accomplished wrestler, but I was really impressed with him when he did the Bloodsport event last year in Atlantic City. That was kind of, he's been around for years, but that was almost like one of his coming out events, similar to what you just experienced a couple weeks ago. So can you talk about facing him in that environment?
it's definitely exciting for me because what comes with getting a buzz from a show like GCW is that every time you step in the ring after that, you got to prove that that wasn't a fluke, that you really are the guy. And so now I'm getting a lot of matches that I've been wanting for a while, and this is one of them. He's one of the best heavyweights in North America, if not the world. And so if I want to put my mark on being one of the best heavyweights, I got to beat the best to be there. So um, just being able to test myself against a guy like caliber as Chris Dickinson, who's wrestled some of the best in the world, is an honor, but not something that I take lightly. It's something that I know that I got to make sure that I'm stepping my game up and killing it as much as I can.
Another high-profile match you have coming up, Paradigm Pro Wrestling has Heavy Hitters 2 on July 24th. You're facing Tom Lawlor, who's no slouch. He's a very prominent name in MMA and in MLW. Can you talk about facing a guy like that, another two-sport athlete who can beat you in a few different ways?
Tom Lawlor is, like you said, there's not too much that you can do in a professional wrestling ring that he wouldn't be good at, from striking to mat game. He's done that with MMA, and then his transition over to pro wrestling has been ridiculous, is what I'd say. It's been extremely good to him, and it's definitely something you don't get to do every day. You don't necessarily get to step in, especially into UWFI rules. It's not something you get to do, is to face someone the caliber of a Tom Lawlor. So while I may not have as much in the MMA category as him, I have done a little bit of training, but nowhere close to what he's done. It'll be a decent challenge for me to go up against someone at the caliber of Tom Lawlor.
MLW recently announced they signed you, so Tom Lawlor's going to be there. Mance Warner's there, somebody else you have history with. Can you talk about what else appealed as far as like signing with MLW, why you picked them?
MLW is definitely focused on the young talent. It's and they have to be. They've signed some of the best young talent, and so I knew with going there that it was only going to help me. They were going to want the best for me and for the young talent to help them develop, because they're trying to develop the next stars. So not just that, but also with their ties to companies overseas. Now, that's difficult to do with coronavirus and everything happening right now, but that's also something that, like, you've got to be thinking about. One of my dreams is to wrestle in Japan. So that right there, just being closer to that by being with MLW, everyone that I've spoken to from the company has been nothing but a pleasure to work with. And I've got some friends that already work for the company. And so just knowing how they do business and that they're good people over there definitely made it easier for me to sign with them.
They described you in the announcement as a hybrid wrestler, fusing power wrestling, brawling, and high flying into a supersized package. That is a direct quote. So in saying all of that, are you looking at a specific wrestling style to, one that you want to get in the most? Like we already said, you're facing a guy like Tom Lawlor, and then you have, Ryan Pillman's there, Davey Boy Smith Jr.
Yeah.
You have a lot of these different hybrid guys that, maybe they're not specifically wrestlers, but they have a fighting background or they have a high flying background. So anybody in particular that you want to work with?
Top two off the list has got to be Hammerstone and Fatu, just because, like, when you think of MLW, those are the guys you think of. Specifically, definitely right now. And so Fatu is just a little bit more interesting because there isn't two guys our size that do the same type of things that we can do in the ring. So that's definitely something I want to test myself against. But as you were saying about, like, my style, I don't necessarily – I take a little bit of everything and try to mix that in with what I do. A lot of the stuff I do is just stuff that I've learned and pulled from a ton of different people. The first people that I watched on a wrestling show, if this tells you anything, that got me hooked was my cousin came over and turned on Nitro, and I saw Rey Mysterio and I saw Goldberg, and those two people were the two people that made me want to become a professional wrestler, or at least at that age, the first time that I said, man, I really want to do this, because Goldberg had the presence and the size and the strength and the power that you didn't see very many other places, and Rey Mysterio just did things through the air and with his body that I'd never seen anybody do. And so, like, just growing up, I've always been in sports, and I always challenged myself not to just do the things that they felt like, oh, a big guy should be able to do this. Like, if there was something that smaller guys were doing and it was helping them get better, I was trying it until I was there. You know what I mean? And so, like, I've brought that over to my wrestling style quite a bit.
One thing that sticks out when you say had an appreciation for Rey Mysterio, another former GCW guy, Marco Stunt, has said a few times like he really looked up to Big Show. And people right away are like, okay, it's funny because he's a small wrestler and Big Show, But I think if you take inspiration from that, you're going to see the results that you are, like you're saying, like, and this is more to the point of the MLW roster. Like, none of you guys really fit into a box. Like, you're all very diverse wrestlers, and I think that's the appeal to the roster. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I already mentioned you've had quite a few run-ins with Mance Warner, who's also on the MLW roster. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about your history with him?
With Mance, he's someone that I literally met before I had my second or third match. We met each other. And, like, especially at the beginning, we were both just trying to find our footing where we were at. And so we started finding ourselves at a lot of the same places. And so as we grew over the next year or 2 years, being down at IWA Mid-South, we had many battles over the IWA World title. He's probably, over my career, he's probably my biggest nemesis that I've had. Because, I mean, that rivalry has come through since, 6 months in until we wrestled at Bizarro Lucha even last year and fought over that championship over there. So it's definitely something that has helped. I don't even want to say help, but it's he's one of those guys that, like, whenever I'm in the ring with Mance, he pushes me. Because we've been around each other, we know each other so well that, like, anytime we're in the ring, we definitely push each other to new heights.
In saying all of that, whether it's GCW, MLW, or if somebody orders another event you're on, what do you want people to notice about you right away?
I've said this a few times, and I want to be revolutionary. I want to have the same effect that guys like Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow had on professional wrestling, where before then you didn't see big guys doing athletic things because it felt like it was unnecessary. But they did it, and they did it well within the confines of what they did as a professional wrestler and made it effective. So that's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to take what they've done and take that to the next level and be that new definition of super heavyweight. Like, I hate that the super heavyweight term is just made for a big guy that sits there and slaps you. Like, yeah, I'm going to slap you. I'm going to hit you in the mouth. But there's so many other things that I can be good and be lethal at. If there's anything that the UFC has taught a lot of people, it's that, like, heavyweights are just as athletic at that size as these little guys. Our hands may be a little bit smaller, or I'm sorry, a little bit slower, but these guys are just as athletic. They're still throwing head kicks. They're still doing the same techniques that the little guys are. So, and today, like, the only thing that's stopping these big guys is that they don't feel like they can. And so, like, I'm one of those guys where if I really want to do it, I'm going to keep doing it until I perfect it. So that's something that I definitely want to do. Is I just want to carry on that, like, that revolutionary role as a super heavyweight, and hopefully leave professional wrestling better than I found it.
Everybody was worried when the quarantine started that we wouldn't have any content to watch. Every company has done a great job of providing different content to people, but I've been asking everybody I talk to if you have any matches that you would recommend, whether it's from your own career that people are just starting to catch on to you, or maybe one that, you watch for inspiration. Anything come to mind like that people can check out?
I've had some good ones. So out of personal matches that I've had, I'd probably say one's against MJF at the first Bizarro Lucha show. That was one where people started to kind of realize that I could really go.
How about one from like history? Whether you mentioned Vader or any guys like that.
Vader, I just go on binges with him, like at random times. There's not one specific one I watch, just because um, I just love everything he does. But I'm gonna say one match that always sticks out to me is because I'm also a huge Samoa Joe fan. Is one is Joe and Necro Butcher, because that's just ridiculous, and I love to show it to people that like either haven't seen that style of wrestling, or just people that haven't paid attention to indie wrestling. I love seeing their face when they see that match. But let me think. One of my favorites is, I'd have to say, is I believe it was Minoru Suzuki and was it Jun Akiyama, when they were both in the white, and he hung him over the top rope and choked him with the sleeper gimmick and left him on the floor. That's definitely one that I watched, just because like the storytelling and everything behind it. That match is just something that I just love. It just, me and my friends will get together and watch it every once in a while if we get to talking about it too much.
All right, Calvin Tankman, new MLW signee. Hopefully we see you in the ring with them soon. But before that, you have a date with Tom Lawlor at Heavy Hitters 2 for Paradigm Pro Wrestling, July 24th, and GCW Homecoming, July 26th in Atlantic City. Thanks very much for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.